Bill told me, you know, the story, he'd had so much fish, so much shellfish and that kind of thing, that it ended up causing a heart event, essentially. And Vince McMahon, I mean, how could they not, got wind of it? And then how long between the heart attack or the heart issue with Bill and then Crush being introduced? How big of a gap of time was there?
Boy, I'm thinking it was pretty much right away. Uh, and we were off for 3, 4, or 5 days or whatever it was, and then when Bill got sick, Bill never called me or anything. I didn't even know anything about it until we came back on the next trip, and then I found out about it. Well, right away they brought Crush in because we had all these dates that we had to fulfill. The Demolition were going to be there. So, Crush came in. It must have been probably a week later, I suppose. I can't really remember exactly, but yeah, and he was such a good guy. We were excited to have him with us, but it's hard to change a tag team. You got the top tag team in the WWF at the time, and all of a sudden your main guy is gone. You bring in somebody else. It was really tough on Crush.
Mm.
You know.
Did you realize that Brian Adams, I always get mixed up with Brian Adams and Brian Clark, but it's Brian Adams. Did you realize that he was a pet project of Vince's already? Or was that the first time you saw him? He was like, hello, I'm your new tag partner.
That was the first time I saw him, and I think I met him one time in Portland, Oregon before, but yeah, I didn't know that Vince was grooming him before that or anything.
Mm.
You kind of get your own bubble, Bill, Fuji, and I, we went on our own. We went to dinner together, lunch together, went to the same hotel, trained at the gym. We just lived with each other all the time. And you kind of get in that bubble. You don't know what everybody else is doing. And really, you didn't care, You were just trying to survive yourself and, get in touch with your family at home and try to get home. So I didn't know what Crush was doing or, what anybody was doing.
Now, you're sort of the veteran of the team now, so were you trying to come up with certain things to try and get Crush accepted by the audiences every single night? What were the little tricks you were trying to do to have Crush like a viable replacement?
Well, what I was trying to do with Crush was he was bigger and stronger than I was. So I tried to, get him to do that role a little bit more than what I was doing. And so it almost kind of where I was taking more bumps than he was, kind of a deal. And that was really the only thing that we tried to do different than Bill and I, because Bill and I were like equal. He'd take bumps, I'd take bumps. We do it all. So I tried to kind of do what Ivan Koloff taught me. I'm a little bit bigger and stronger than Ivan. Ivan was more of the worker part of it. So then I tried to, with Brian, be more of the worker part of it than Brian was.
Mm.
And, it seemed to work.
Very briefly before I move on from Crush, and I remember this very, very well, and someone else wrote this in as well. WrestleMania 7, that's the one in Los Angeles. I think like Sergeant Slaughter's and Hulk Hogan's on top on that one. And you face Kitao and Tenryu on that match. And I remember watching that at the time and thinking or maybe when I was a bit older and I sort of understood wrestling a little bit more, I always looked at that match and thought, is someone upset with somebody? In that sense, because for whatever, I don't know if one of the Japanese guys wasn't sort of reacting properly, and the match was very quick, and you guys lost, which was a huge surprise as well.
I don't know what the whole story behind it was, but we had a longer match prepared, and then last minute they come up and said, "Hey, you got 10 minutes total instead of 20." Well, that completely changes the deal. I think what it was, Tenryu, he was a top guy, great guy in Japan. And I think getting him in WrestleMania and beating us, the Demolition, brought him way up in Japan wrestling a lot more, him and his partner. And I think it was just we were stepping stones to help them out in Japan, is what I think it was.